Hey everybody, Naga King 07 here, and well, let me just get started in saying that I'm doing this mostly because I've seen so many other people do it, and I figure it's probably a necessity for lot of internet goers. So here I am. So this is Bleach, chapter 459, and well, what else to say? But it's good. And that's pretty much the basic rundown. It's a good, solid chapter. And a lot of people have kind of been critical about the last chapters for kind of straying away from the general story, and I guess I'd have to agree with that because the main story in the beginning, and I kind of liked it when it was a little more simpler. I mean, in the first part, it was just kind of like protect the town from these evil monsters. And in the Rukia rescue arc, I thought that was good. I mean, it put more at stake compared to the first part. And in the arc concerning the Arrancar, I thought that was good too, but I thought they made a little too complex. I mean, the concept of all these Espada and the Vizards coming in, or the Visor, or whatever you call them. And yeah, I think that was a little. Oh, I think that could have been a little simpler. And think that no, don't get me wrong. I think it was cool, but I think Kubo kind of took it a took it like a little too far. Just like that one tiny step. I think maybe he could have just made it a little simpler. But in the end, I'm glad I read it, and I thought it was really good. In all honesty, I actually read the manga after I watched the anime. But in all honesty, I don't really think that makes much of a difference, mostly because of the fact that they're more or less similar. Actually, in my opinion, the anime gives a little more than the manga. And before anybody starts yelling at me for that, let me just say what I mean is that the anime adds a little more. It adds some more scenes or something, and putting out the filler arcs because yeah, everybody knows those things are stupid and unnecessary. But kind of the anime for just a general episode, they add a little more, and of course the animation is always good to see. And yeah, so yeah, that's kind of the first part. And after Aizen was beaten, and the final battle with Aizen, that was a good part. The build up was great, the payoff was great. But after Aizen, the story really bogged down. I mean, it really came slow. 'Cause the first chapters were very boring. They had very little action. Actually, in all honesty, a lot of Kubo's work seems to include a lot of talking less than fighting. My friends and I always talk about that. We say that half the time they're just kind of discussing how they're going to do all of this. And I'm not saying that's a weakness. It's always interesting to hear them talk. For Eisen, for example, I mean, he's always gives this atmosphere just when he's talking that he's like, this guy's bad. Uh, but that said, a lot of it was talking, but when it was, aside from the talking, the fight scenes were always cool, and kind of, but these first couple chapters after the Eisen saga, they were just really slow. They were just really, really boring, and things got a little more in depth when Kugo, Kugo or Ginjo, whatever, and when he said to Ichigo, "We're here to help you restore your Shinigami powers," and I was like, "Well, this is a good thing. We can get back into the original story." But no, it was full bring or whatever. And no, don't get me wrong, the full bring idea was creative. I mean, it was cool, and it also gave a little more explanation of what exactly Chad's power is. But so yeah, that was cool. But it seemed kind of overdone. I mean, a lot of Kugo's power was pretty cool. I mean, that kind of concept of him summoning that big sword from across. I mean, that was cool. And but a lot of those powers, they were really stupid. In my opinion, they don't actually seem very ba- battle likely. Like Ryuka's dollhouse ability. I mean, my expression was kind of this, what? Where's the battle purpose in that? And I know Kubo tried to indicate, well, Tite Kubo, he tried to indicate that her power can be used to some extent and to be used offensively, but quite a few of those powers just kind of, well, stupid. Now, some of them were cool. Tsukushima's power, that was pretty creative. It puts a lot more her in, and yeah, I'm going off topic a lot here, but I'm enjoying myself right here, and I just always wanted to do one of these. So, Tsukushima's power, that was interesting. That was pretty cool. And so yeah, that's the Fullbring, and so the build up to that, and everybody was like, "Oh yes, Ichigo's getting his Shinigami powers back. Things are going to be great. Like, things are getting back into business." But it still takes him like 3 chapters to full. Well, probably 3 chapters. Well, maybe not, but it takes him more like at least at most 3 chapters to really get anywhere. And even then, we barely even figure out what it is. And it takes like after that, it takes another 5 chapters for him to even fully achieve it. And then, well, yeah, that don't get me wrong, that it looked cool. I mean, his look for that case, that was cool. I mean, his Fullbring design, that was creative. It looked very Hollow-esque, and that was probably the point. The sword was cool too. I mean, the way it came from his badge or something, that was cool. And so, yeah, that was good. And but the build up to this to chapter 3 5 to chapter 459. I always slip the tongue. And the build up was very. It was. I don't want to say it was bad, but it wasn't good. I mean, it was very slow. It was not very interesting, and the characters were kind of flat. I mean, some of them might have been better than others. I mean, we still haven't seen that much of them, and so yeah, the build up wasn't that good. But and also kind of always made me wonder whenever we first saw Haru and Ishin kind of just sort of meeting there, and this Shinigami just drops out of nowhere, and well, not out of nowhere, but just drops down and kind of said, and they just kind of say, "Let's go," and we always kind of wondered, who was that? What's going on? So yeah, that was good. And also, I always wanted to see I always want to see how something progresses. I mean, that's half the reason. I can watch a really bad movie, and I just want to see how it progresses. So, yeah, that's that. And, but in this chapter, I mean, in the last chapter, actually, the chapter before the last chapter, Kugo's been cut. I mean, and Tsukushima's ability to like make people believe that he's always been one of the strongest allies. I mean, that was cool. That was intense. But I mean, we saw that one chapter. Kugo gets slashed, and he's down, and everybody's like, "Oh no, Ichigo's lost his only ally," and he, and but then it turns out Kugo's actually a bad guy, or at least possibly a bad guy. I mean, chances are, but that's another story. And he's like, "Thank you for your help. I'm taking your Fullbring now." So yeah, that was good. I mean, and his plan, that was creative too. I know plenty of reviewers have said that already, but it was really creative. Kudos to Kubo for actually giving us some really clever plans. I'll say one thing, Brad. This guy is really good at planning something long term, and yeah, his build up can be a little slow sometimes, but in all, well, actually, I'll get back to that later. But he can really set something long term. It's like he has this whole story arc or entire saga just planned out in his head, and it's just kind of like this plays out so great. I mean, he's just such a good thinker. At least the art in Bleach is don't get me wrong, it's good, but compared to something like One Piece or maybe Fairy Tail or others, it's not as good. It's good, but it's not as good. It's kind of basic, and that might be the intention, but because it's not much to look at. I mean, the characters actually have surprisingly normal hairstyles compared to other. And maybe, yeah, in the Serite, those hairstyles are what most of those hairstyles are kind of idiotic. But in the real world,